Any health-related information on the following show provides general information only. Content presented on any show by any host or guest should not be substituted for a doctor's advice. Always consult your physician before beginning any new diet, exercise, or treatment program.
James Roguski on the show.
Hopefully you can hear me, Nancy. I think you left it open for me to start talking, so here I go, but I was unable to hear what you said. There is a lot of news happening. If you want to shake your head and tell me that I should just keep going, I'll be happy to do so. I'm having a little bit of technical difficulties here. First and foremost, in regards to the World Health Organization, what the WHO has been doing and what they are in the middle of is negotiating amendments to the international health regulations. And those regulations are currently existing international law, but the WHO and all of the member nations have been having secret discussions regarding these amendments. And despite the fact that myself and people in the United Kingdom and Australia, New Zealand, Finland, and South Africa have submitted freedom of information requests, the proposed amendments from 14 different nations have been kept absolutely completely secret. And so what happened in the last month, at the beginning of October, the Director General of the WHO, Tedros Ghebreyesus, created a committee, a review committee that answers only to him. They were set up as they refer to it as confidential or private, but by any other word that means secret. A panel of 18 people were hand selected by Tedros to be a review committee to analyze and go over these 14 proposals, which we, the people, are absolutely not permitted to see at this point in time. Now, there was supposed to be a meeting next Monday and Tuesday, the 14th and the 15th, of the working group for amendments to the international health regulations that was supposed to, have these discussions in a more open and sort of pseudo-democratic fashion, in that the delegates from all of the member nations were supposed to be able to participate. Well, 2 weeks ago, the WHO held these private review committee meetings to do these discussions, and it's all completely in secret. Now, what they refer to as relevant stakeholders, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Clinton Foundation, and up to 390 some organizations and companies, pharmaceutical companies and so forth, they are allowed to participate in these meetings, but we, the people, are not allowed to know what's going on. And so what I have encouraged people to do, we actually found the email contact that is supposed to be the information division of the WHO, where if people ask for information, sort of a Freedom of Information Act request, but they do not even reply that they have received emails from us requesting this information. The United Kingdom, the person who submitted a Freedom of Information Act request from the United Kingdom, they replied, yes, we do have the documents that you're requesting, but no, we're not going to give them to you. And so the upshot of all of this is people are soon going to realize that the World Health Organization really does not care about the health of we, the people. They're focused on surveillance and compliance and governance, and they want more money. And part of the problem really started about 20 years ago, when the WHO failed miserably in many ways on many different issues. And the nations that make up the member states, the 194 member nations, balked on giving them additional money. And so what shifted about 20 years ago is the WHO started to receive donations from what they call relevant stakeholders, and additional on the side donations from other nations that were not just to go into the general fund to support the WHO and all of the things that they're supposed to be doing, but they came with strings attached. And so groups like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and Gavi, their vaccine alliance, they donate billions of dollars, but they get to say how that money is used by the WHO. And in any other world, that would be looked at as influence peddling, money laundering, collusion, corruption, whatever you want to call it. The donated money goes through the WHO, but gets used in ways that are controlled by the people who donate the money. Now, that would be one thing. That'd be fine if you donated, to your alma mater and you wanted them to build a stadium or a gymnasium or a science lab or something in your honor. But when we're dealing with a supranational, an international organization, allowing organizations like that to control the actions and donate money and control how that money is spent, it's just as corrupt could be. The conflicts of interest are enormous. And so one of the efforts that I have put forth is to realize that the WHO was not going to listen to we, the people. Back in April, with about a week's notice, we got 33,884 people to submit written comments to the WHO. They held them pretty much in secret until about a month or so ago. And as it turns out, 99.9% of all of the comments said that the people did not want the WHO to have a treaty or amendments or have more power or more authority. But the response that the WHO had to those comments were they canceled a public comment period in June, and they literally posted in red on their website that they wanted the public comments to support what the WHO was doing. And they're just absolutely unclear on what the concept of public comment is. You don't just accept the public comments that are in support of what you're doing when uh, the public opinion is against what you're doing. A truly democratic organization would listen to that public comment, and they should essentially stop what it is they're doing. And so I created a webpage, The People's Amendments, which anyone can. We're doing this interview right now. It's the same time that we normally have a daily Zoom on thepeoplesamendments.com. I encourage all of the listeners to go to thepeoplesamendments.com, see what we are doing, and I invite everyone to comment or contact me directly. My phone number is right on the website, but I'll give it right now. It's 310-619-3055. The WHO is clearly not listening to
James,
the voice
can you
of
hear
the
me?
people. I can hear you now. Welcome back
Oh,
to your own show.
right.
Go right ahead.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can. Aren't technological difficulties fun? I don't know if you can hear it, and it looks like she froze up again. So in terms of the People's Amendments, one of the reasons why started this effort is in the International Health Regulations, the very first article is literally just definition of terms. And many of the words that are used in the International Health Regulations are defined there. And in the very first part of the proposed pandemic treaty, the WHO actually admitted that there were dozens of words that are not defined in the law, and that one of the first orders of business was that these words needed to be legally defined. And so putting those two things together, it became obvious that one of the ways that they manipulate the world in which we live is to continually change the meaning of words. Back on September 2nd of 2021, it became apparent that the quote unquote vaccines were not working the way they were intended. They were not actually meeting the definition of a vaccine. They were failing miserably. So rather than actually admit that the project was an abject failure, they just changed the definition of the word vaccine on the CDC website. And it went from something that actually gave people immunity to something that merely triggered an immune response. Now, almost everything you do in life, anything certainly that you inject into the body, is going to trigger an immune response. So the current definition on the CDC's website of what a quote unquote vaccine is just absolutely absurd. And so we've been working myself with as many people as can around the world, all over the place, to define words like pandemic and vaccine. And one of the most egregious ones is the phrase safe and effective. Many of these words, if you hear these words spoken, it's almost assured that what you're about to hear from someone on the news media is a big pile of propaganda, because safe and effective does not have a legal definition. And until the powers that be actually define what they mean by safe and what they mean by effective, it's meaningless. And so on thepeoplesamendments.com, there's a working draft of what we have been discussing and talking about, and literally everybody in the world is invited to look through the working draft. You can certainly make comments on the article, and on a daily basis, you can participate in the Zoom meeting that we have. And you can also call me directly. My phone number is 310-619-3055. I've met some of the most wonderful people all over the world. And so the WHO is supposed to be having meetings on Monday and Tuesday, the 14th and the 15th of November. My observation of how they operate is usually the week before they have one of these meetings, they would publish documents about the agenda and who was going to be participating, and maybe possibly the documents that they are going to be discussing during the meeting. But as of today, Tuesday, I think it's the 8th today, it's election day, they are completely invisible. They have published no information whatsoever about 14 nations that have proposed amendments on, to change international law. Now, what happened back earlier in the year is the Biden administration submitted proposed amendments, and then they just went silent. And what it appeared that they were trying to do was just to have it be very quietly approved during the May World Health Assembly. But obviously, people got wind of what they were trying to do, and it was completely and totally rejected back in May. Moving forward from that, what has happened is these 14 nations were told that by September 30th, they had the opportunity to submit proposed amendments, which they did. And many nations, such as the Czech Republic, submitted a proposal on behalf of the European Union. A small nation in Southeast Africa, Eswatini, submitted a proposal on behalf of all of the African nations in the WHO African region. Uruguay submitted a proposal on behalf of a number of South American nations, and the Russian Federation submitted a proposal on behalf of an Eastern Eurasian group. And they did let us know that these nations had submitted proposals. They let us know that the private review committee that answers to Tedros 2 weeks ago held meetings to discuss these proposals, but they just absolutely refused to let we the people see what these proposals are. And so for people around the world, okay, I encourage everyone to reach out to their parliament, their Congress. Today, hopefully, we will have quite a lot of new members in the House of Representatives and the Senate. It remains to be seen. But in this general regard, silence is absolutely consent. And if we the people just allow this or these negotiations to continue in secret, by definition, we are giving our consent to allow it to happen. Now, I want to make sure that people are clear that this is not what is commonly referred to as the pandemic treaty. The pandemic treaty is a completely, totally different thing. It is a problem. It is still out there in the world. They're on a totally different timeline, different track. They are supposed to have a meeting December 5, 6, and 7. And the exact same thing is going on with the pandemic treaty. All of the nations around the world were told to submit proposed language for the pandemic treaty by September 15th. So it's been almost 2 months now that all of those proposals are completely secret. the Intergovernmental Negotiating Body, which is a group within the WHO, has had a number of meetings. They have asked for public comment, and probably 200 people have submitted 90-second videos expressing their opinion about the proposed pandemic treaty. And I encourage everyone to go to screwthewho.com, because that's where I have collected the videos that people have submitted. And quite frankly, I think most would find it educational and entertaining. If you go to screwthewho.com, there are hundreds of people around the world who have taken the time and put forth the effort and recorded 90-second videos, essentially saying, we don't want the WHO to be negotiating a new international law in the form of a treaty. Now, the difference between the two is actually, I think, really very important. The reason why I'm very concerned about the amendments to the international health regulations is it's actually much easier for them to enact amendments to existing regulations. They would only need a simple majority vote in next May's World Health Assembly. And if they merely get 98 out of the 194 member nations to adopt whatever amendments they may consider, it becomes international law unless an individual nation states very clearly that they reject those amendments and they do not want to participate with the changes. But in that case, the nation would have to take a proactive move amendments. With the proposed pandemic treaty, the path is much more difficult. And so I'm cautioning people not to be distracted by discussions about the pandemic treaty. At this point in time, the amendments to the international health regulations, I think, are much more worrisome, because with the treaty, they would actually need a 2/3 majority in the World Health Assembly in May to adopt it. But then each of the 194 member nations would have to go through the procedure that their nation demands, such as here in the United States, the Senate would have to give their advice and consent to the tune of 2/3 majority. And whether it's a parliamentary government or whatever the governments around the world might be, each nation would have to follow their regulations in terms of how they would proactively adopt a treaty. And so that pathway is obviously much more difficult, and it's much more concerning that the path that they're pursuing in secret to amend the international health regulations requires much more attention. And so these things are all happening now, and obviously there's many other things going on in the world. The elections here in the United States, war in the Ukraine, all kinds of many different things. Nancy, is there a chance that you might be back and live? I can see you
Well,
here.
every
Okay. Yep, I heard you just for a split second, and then it broke out again. Nancy's definitely not in her normal studio setting, and so she's having ongoing problems. I'm going to change the topic. I don't know exactly how much time we have left. I don't know if we're going to go to the top of the hour or 10 minutes shy. Sorry, Nancy, I can't hear you. All right,
Can you
so
hear
I
me
will.
now?
I can go for it.
Okay. I think everything you said was so important. I'm so sorry I had such bad
And her stream has dropped again. So I would just like to give people an opportunity to know where to go to find more information. And so I have a lot of things that I can share with you. If you got a piece of paper and a pen, it'd be great if you could write them down. First and foremost, feel free to call me. My name's James Roguski, Roguski. You can go to jamesroguski.substack, substack.com. My phone number is 310-619-3055. And you can have your pick between stopthewho.com, leavethewho.com, or screwthewho.com. And all have different information, but they pretty much get you right back to the Substack where I keep all the info. I think I can hear you for a split second now, Nancy. Oh, and she's gone again. I encourage everyone to do the most simple thing that anyone can do, whether it's screwthewho.com or stopthewho.com or thepeoplesamendments.com. Just go learn, see what the information is, and share it with as many people as you possibly can. Oh, Nancy froze up again. Nothing like technological problems on a live show. So. Oh, can I hear you now? Okay. Being that the election in the United States is happening today, one of the things that I have spoken with Nancy about in the past is another effort of mine, which is called Declaration of Demands. And so if you go to declarationofdemands.com, that is a United States focused list of demands that we, the people, should address our brandy new Congress that we're going to have on January 3rd. There are so many laws that have been put into place that have taken our rights away, things that people are unaware of. And vote for whomever you want to vote for, but every single member of the House of Representatives has failed at least 5 times over the past 2.5 years to obey one of the many laws, and that is simply the case that Congress was obligated by law to vote every 6 months as to whether or not the national emergency should be allowed to continue. And most people do not even realize that such a law exists. Now, the laws like the PrEP Act and the Childhood Vaccination Act, going all the way back to 1986, have taken away the rights of the people in the sense that they give the pharmaceutical companies protection from liability, and have actually, in my view, made a very unconstitutional declaration that the courts, including the Supreme Court, do not even have jurisdiction over that liability question. And so when you see that previous Congresses have written and enacted laws that are on their face an abomination to the Constitution, I encourage everyone here as well to go to declarationofdemands.com, read through what is there. I think most people will find that these ideas are reasonable, and by all means, everyone's comment is requested. Nancy, you might be here. I think I can hear you.
I have been trying so hard. You've been wonderful, James. I want to thank you for being here today. And so everyone, I urge you to.
My goodness. Well, trying to fill in the dead air for Nancy. There are so many issues that are going on in the world today. I'd just like to encourage people to go to jamesroguski.substack.com. Give me a phone call anytime, 310-619-3055. 3055. Many of these issues are so complex, and that's kind of how the game is played. They make everything so complex. I do my best to try to simplify them, do the work so that people can get kind of the Cliff Notes version of it and come away with an action that they can take in order to address these issues. Nancy, are you there?
Yes.
Oh, unfortunately. Nope, unfortunately, your stream seems to be problematic.
Thank you.
All right, looks like we lost Nancy once again. James, thank you so much for being here today. And Nancy's not going to be able to finish the show, so I'm going to finish it for her. Thank you so much for being with us,
Thank you, Candy.
and thank you for everyone for listening. And we'll see you back next week here on Organic Healthy Lifestyle. Take care, everyone.